Welcome everybody back to the Mindful Magazine channel. Today I have with me Dr. Arthur Ciaramicoli, if I say it correctly. And he is really an amazing person because he's been a psychologist for over 35 years. And also he is a writer of several books like The Soulful Leader, The Stress Solution, and his latest book, The Triumph of Diversity. And we're going to go a bit further into that book further in the conversation. So Arthur, could you tell me a bit more about yourself and how you ended up as a clinical psychologist?
Well, Michelle, I think I think I was trained early in life because my parents were always inviting people in from different cultures, different countries. Sometimes we didn't understand the languages, but my mother was a very good listener, very calm person, and my father was a motivator. So there was always somebody at our kitchen table, a young person, like when I was in grade school, these young people would be in high school or college, and my father or mother would be encouraging them. So I didn't know what the word psychologist meant then, but I think I was in training all along in my childhood.
That sounds really fantastic. So basically you got a combination of both parents. You became
Yes.
a listener and a motivator at the same time.
Yes. I like to think I have the heart of my mother and the intensity and passion of my father.
Well, I think that's a great combination, and it's something that that people need in psychology sessions because
Yes.
I think nowadays it's so important that people are listening to what they are needing, and also that they get a bit of motivation to keep going. Um, well, you launched your latest book, The Triumph of Diversity. What do you think is causing all this separation in the world? Why do you think there's so many prejudices and people are feeling so uncomfortable with all the differences?
Well, that's an excellent question because I think that to some degree it starts with leadership. We know from credible studies when leaders lead through aggression and fear, it filters down to the population. We know that when leaders are making sadistic or cruel comments about people unlike themselves, about minorities or different races or people of different religions, it has a profound effect on nations. We also know that nations with the highest level of empathy have more agreeableness. They have people who are more conscientious. They have people who are more pro-social, and they have people who have greater appreciation for diversity, people who don't look like themselves or maybe have the same religion or come from the same background. But they when we use empathy, because when communities are more empathic, they look beyond the surface. They look into the heart and soul of other human beings, and they see eventually that we're all more similar than we are dissimilar. But when leaders lead in a black and white way, when they lead from that position of us, them, it creates differentiating one human being from another. And it negates diversity. It negates the benefits of diversity.
Yeah, yeah, so you're saying basically they are the leaders, and if they present this separation, then everyone will follow that leader into that separation and believe in kind of what they are saying. Um, do you also think that separation or has to do with how children are raised? Like, what age do you think that is starting?
Well, I think in your own home, we idealize our parents. Young people idealize their parents. So if you hear people making anti-Semitic comments or comments about Muslims or comments about people from other cultures or religions, children take it in as if it's gospel, as if it's the truth. Our job, what I try to teach people, I've spent my entire career trying to teach people to reduce the prejudices toward themselves and others. And I think we write a novel early in life. We write a story about ourselves and others based on our experiences, but it's a novel. It's not a nonfiction book. I think our responsibility as adults is we need to edit that book and write a nonfiction account, find out what's true and find out what isn't true. That's a necessity for having a peaceful heart and a peaceful culture.
Yeah. And how do you think people can investigate or ask these questions to themselves? Because because you're also talking about prejudices against yourself. Like, how can you do that to yourself, and how can you investigate a bit more in what is true?
I think, first of all, we need to find out the truth about ourselves. I mean, I've had communication and leadership groups for over 30 years in place, and people come in from different cultures. Now I have several people from different countries. And over time, a consensus is reached about who you are. You get feedback about yourself, because
Yeah.
we're all too subjective to determine who we are. People come in thinking they're not very bright, or they're not very attractive, or they're not very athletic. So much of it is untrue. My job is not so much to find out what's wrong with people, but to tease out what's always been right with them that they haven't been able to see because of their old conditioning. And I
Yeah.
think we need feedback from other reasonable people that we trust. And you know, the old saying that a good friend tells you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So when you have people like that in your life, you get the feedback. And if you're open to it, you take it in and you rewrite the book about yourself, but not only about yourself, about others, about
Yeah.
others.
Yeah. Yeah. So how can you make sure, because a lot of influences come from the outside world. So how can you make sure that you're surrounded by the right people so you get a better image of yourself?
Well, I think in the world, we have different forces operating. We sort of have cult-like thinking, which is people take in information from people who are not necessarily telling the truth, but when they engage you and they speak with a lot of intensity and passion and anger, as most demagogues speak, that you can easily get taken in by it. But when we slow down, and empathy allows people to slow down, and empathy is very objective oriented. When you expand your empathic range, you look for the facts. So just because you hear it on TV or in social media, it doesn't mean it's true. Ask yourself what the source is. Where did that study come from? Where did those facts come from? In this country, we're listening to politicians tell us about the COVID-8 virus. But what about the scientists? I always encourage people, listen to the scientists, the credible scientists, not the people who are trying to position themselves politically for gain, but the scientists who are giving you the data. And it's the same way in wellness. It's the same way in health. There are studies that are credible and there are studies that are not credible. If you
Yeah.
find out where that information is and where the credible, honest information is, then you start to take it in over time and you learn more yourself. You increase your wisdom.
Yeah. So it's basically you have to ask yourself a lot of questions, and maybe it is also about people when they get to know themselves more, or when they start being more in their bodies, they can define better what is true for them, and they can maybe research more into what what is really true from a gut feeling. Because yeah, there's a lot of I mean, there's a lot of cult leaders as well in the spiritual world right now, and
Yes.
they have a lot of followers. And I'm almost wondering, like, when do you know something is genuine, you know, and when do you know something is off? Like, how, what signs can you look at? Like,
I'll give you a quick example. I had an example of a man who came in a few weeks ago and he told me he was losing weight. He had a great diet. And he wanted to show me the box that he had, and he had ordered it from a particular country.
yeah,
And I said, do you find yourself urinating a lot at night? He goes, all day long. I said, that's because there's 3 diuretics in this product. He says, no, there aren't. They're all herbs. And I said, those 3 herbs are diuretics. He said, well, what's happening to me? I said, you're taking diuretics. Of course you're going to lose, but you're losing water. So, you know, there's a new diet book that comes out every month in the world, right? I mean,
yeah,
talk to the publishing industry, they say, write a diet book, it will sell. You could write a popcorn diet, and you know, if you limit people to 800 calories, they're going to lose weight. The point is, he didn't really know what was in the bottle,
yeah,
but he watched the ads, and the ads are very impressive. They show these very overweight people, and then they show these people with, you know, 6-packs and muscles and all of this. It's not going to work. He's taking diuretics that he didn't understand because he didn't look into it enough.
yeah,
He didn't ask other people who know more. Maybe he should have asked a nutritionist, a credible nutritionist, or
yeah,
his physician, or somebody who would know, not just buying it, assuming that what he's hearing is true.
Yeah.
It's the same with your information. Like I give you feedback about yourself, but you don't know me. So how do you know whether I'm telling you something that's accurate or inaccurate? You have to make an assessment of me, right? That takes time. You
Yeah.
have to slow down and learn more about me and my character to see whether I'm honest and whether I'm insightful. Once you determine that, you can start to take in some information.
Yeah. So it's more about taking a bit of distance and then observe what you're seeing. And then you can make an actual assessment instead of you see something, you feel attracted to it in some way, and then you would run behind it because, yeah, it looks so good, but you don't actually know if it is as good, you know? And a lot of times, same as me, I don't really read the ingredients of the things that I'm actually eating, and it might be very harmful because I haven't investigated any of it.
I tell a story in the book about this woman, an American woman. She goes to Rome, and she's 30 years old, and she's kind of anxious about the fact that she's not married. She hasn't met anyone. So she meets this man, Lorenzo, in Rome, and she's taken with him, and he has the accent, and he's handsome, and he has green eyes and wavy black hair. Anyway, in 6 months, they're married. Then he finds out that he's cheating on her. Long story short, she comes back to the United States. They're getting a divorce. She comes to see me, and she tells me, all Italians are like this and like that, and they all cheat on you. Now, what happens when we're hurt? We generalize.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
happened to her? Rather than her examining and taking some time to know this individual, she got taken in by the aura of Rome, his
Yeah.
Italian accent, his friends, and he was taking her out to dinner and so forth. She didn't know him. She didn't know who his character was. But because her self-esteem is low, all of a sudden he was like an antidepressant.
Yeah.
He lifted her up, and then she dropped.
Yeah.
Empathy teaches us to slow down and listen. Empathic listening allows you to get to know a person. And that's where mindfulness comes in, because mindfulness and empathy are intimately related. In order to be empathic, you have to be mindful. In order to be mindful and empathic, you have to slow down. And if you slow down and really observe what a person is saying, how he's treating the waiter, how he's treating his friends, what kind of friends does he have, you get to know people more and more. You don't get to know a person on a day at the beach. You get to know them under stress when conflict comes. And because when conflict comes and difficulty comes, that's when people's character is revealed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
I
what
know we have this expression in the Netherlands, like if you run really fast, you're gonna fall really fast as well, or you're gonna fall really hard because you run so fast. Either it could be a date or with someone or anything in life. You run really fast and your expectations are so high that this person can never achieve these expectations either that you have towards this person. So you're gonna drop because it's not where you thought it would be.
Getting to know another human being is not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
It takes time. And if you're not, you have to always put your longings aside, because say you just went through a divorce and you feel like no one will ever love you again. You're not in a good position to be in a relationship because your longings are so strong. It's like when you don't have a job for 2 years, you were laid off and then you had an interview and you don't even ask a person what the package is or whether there's any health insurance because you're so eager to have a job because you can't pay your rent. So when we know what our longings are, we kind of can put them aside and say, I know I'm about to react too quickly. So I have to slow down.
Yeah.
Slow down. Empathy and mindfulness go with slowing down. And when you slow down, then you hear things differently.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely amazing because it all entails what is happening right now. We come from a society where people are running, for work, running to see friends, then running to do this. And now something like a coronavirus is happening and we're kind of forced to slow down right now.
Yes.
And what I've been hearing around me is people getting emotions, emotions are coming up, but after that, there's like a more clear vision coming, or, you see things more clear because we're actually being forced to look at ourselves at this moment.
Yes. And in terms of slowing down, speed is part of what creates prejudice because we react very quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You may have had a boyfriend or someone you were involved with from the U.S. and now you're interviewing someone from the U.S. And if and you, oh my God, you know, you could react very quickly to assume that you know what I'm like, or I assume that I know what you're like.
Yeah.
Quick reactions usually refer back to old conditioning.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
a black person or a Jewish person or a Muslim, and you make decisions. One of my patients was on a train from New York coming into Providence, Rhode Island, here in the United States, and there was a man dressed in what he thought was a Muslim garb. He said, clothing. Okay,
Yeah.
so he started to panic and he started to perspire, and he thought he was with his wife and his two little kids, and he thought there's a terrorist behind me. So he gets off the bus and he's walking down, and all of a sudden this man is running toward him, the person he thought was a terrorist, and he taps him on the shoulder and he says, your daughter dropped her doll.
Aww. But
And he
this is,
said,
yeah.
I felt like a complete fool.
Yeah.
Prejudice, a quick reaction. He saw how he was dressed. I have a trailer to this book, this book, The Triumph of Diversity. So one of my clients watched the trailer and she said, well, I'm reading your book. I love your book, but why do you have a terrorist in your trailer to the book? And I said, what? And she said, well, that woman with the hijab. And I said, that's a young girl. She goes, with that thing on her head. I said, you know what that thing on her head is.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
immediately she turned off the trailer because she associates, she goes, well, she's a Muslim. They're all terrorists. I said, they're not all terrorists. I said,
Yeah.
for this book, I interviewed several Muslims and I found them to be extremely gracious and open and giving. And they
Yeah.
don't even think those people who commit those acts are Muslims.
Yeah.
They don't.
So how can people kind of deal with that fear? Because some people actually like I think these people really coming from a place of fear, you know, and the things that we see in the news, like we don't know what is really true and what is really happening, and how can we be kind to this kind of, you know, to the people that we fear?
Again, it's going back to empathy
Yeah.
helps us ascertain the facts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anti-Semitism is at an all-time high. Islamophobia is at an all-time high. Race relationships are very poor. Prejudice and discrimination against people of color. One of my clients is Hispanic, and he said, look, if you're Hispanic or Black in this country, you're just not wanted. A recent Gallup poll in the United States just last year said that Black and Hispanic people feel less safe in this country than they have in 10 years. Because of the rhetoric they hear from leaders, from people talking in disparaging ways, rather than giving them the facts. There are
And do you think that, for example, like bullying has a lot to do with the diversity, or do you think a lot of bullying will be solved if we start embracing diversity more?
If we embrace diversity, we will come to learn that human beings are more alike than different, as I had said before. And what does diversity bring? Diverse ideas.
Yeah.
If you 10 white men, 10 50-year-old white men in a group to try to figure out what they should bring to the marketplace, they all pretty much are thinking in similar ways. If you bring men and women from different cultures, different ethnicities, different religions, we see the whole world and we benefit from it.
Yeah.
We know in schools where children grow up in diverse backgrounds, they're more strategic thinkers, they're more creative, they feel safer. And in terms of your point, Michelle, there is far less bullying in those schools. Why? Because when they see a Black person or an Asian person or someone from another country or from another religion, they don't panic. They don't have an immediate fear reaction because they've grown up with those people. So what happens? They feel safer in the whole world, because there's no one they haven't encountered, or they have encountered almost everyone of different races, religions, and they're comfortable. If you're only in your little group, as soon as you go outside that group, you start to feel anxious and you produce the stress response. What is the stress response? It produces cortisol. It makes your thinking go from out here to in here. So you have black and white, little narrow thinking instead of more expansive thinking.
Yeah. So do you include as well, I mean, you already said you were a fan of mindfulness. Do you include mindfulness as well in your sessions with clients? Do you combine this kind of therapy as well?
Yes, I teach people that mindfulness is about being present right now. For instance, you and I right now, when I'm
Yeah,
talking to you, I've blocked out the whole world.
yeah,
You know, I do my groups in a church. I rent a space in a church, and sometimes they have organs and music lessons playing, and people will say, "Oh, I'm getting distracted because of the organ." I don't even hear it.
yeah,
I'm not complimenting myself. I've just trained myself over many years. When I'm listening to you, I'm with you.
yeah, yeah,
So that's mindfulness. Empathic listening is mindfulness.
yeah,
So if
yeah,
I'm here with you, there's nothing else. So I can take in everything you're saying. I can take in your nonverbal reactions. I can take it all in.
yeah. And how do you think that is for people with ADHD? Because I have people around me who have that, and they are so easily distracted, you know, like different incentives around or incentives. How can they deal with that?
When I was in school, I couldn't pay attention. I was a very poor student. I used to just say, "Can I go to the bathroom?" And then I would just leave.
Yeah,
So I'm sure I would have been diagnosed with ADD. Okay.
yeah,
So I was told I was not college material. I was too distracted and so forth and so on. So here I am talking to you. And look what I do for a living. I sit and listen to people
yeah,
because I've taught myself to calm down.
yeah,
So even people that are easily distracted, you can start to teach yourself to slow down. You
yeah,
can change the brain. We know, people talk about the brain being hardwired. It's not hardwired, it's soft-wired.
yeah. So you
I
can
have a
change any belief system, any pattern, you can change it.
Yes, I have a patient in her 90s, and I've known her for I think 3 years.
Yeah,
And I mean, she had like 5 diagnoses, and she was on different medications. They told her she was bipolar, she had ADD, she had depression, she had OCD, and she had insomnia, and on and on. I think she got a diagnosis from everybody.
yeah.
So today she's on no medication, and her point of view has changed. She's become more optimistic because she wants to learn. She had a craving to learn from somebody who was listening, not just prescribing medications every time she had a symptom.
Yeah, because I think that's also part of the conditioning when you're talking to someone that constantly is telling you that something is wrong with you, or you know, you're this, you're that, you're that. You actually start to believe it, and then probably the medication is kind of numbing the person. So it's not really being themselves; it's rather being numb and not. They're not provided the solution to improve or to you know, to work with maybe the qualities that they actually have.
I'm not anti-medication if it's needed. I want to make
Yeah,
that clear. But
yeah,
when it's given so quickly without really understanding, I have a patient from another state, okay?
yeah,
And she's a very nice woman. She's a very calm woman. She's very easy to talk with. She's not anxious. She's not inattentive. So she found out her husband is having an affair with her best friend.
yeah,
Okay. So she's not sleeping at night. And her sister insisted that she go see a psychiatrist. So she went to see the psychiatrist, and she called me up and she said, the psychiatrist said I'm bipolar and I need to go on lithium. I said, you're not bipolar and you don't need to go on lithium. And I said, I'll talk to him. So I talked to him, and he said, no, she meets 7 of the characteristics that in the DSM manual that she's bipolar. I said, sir, are you married? He said, yes. Why are you asking me? I said, if your wife had an affair with your best friend, do you think you'd stop sleeping at night for a few nights? Do you think you
yeah,
might be talking rapidly? You
yeah,
see, he didn't even see the underlying issue.
yeah,
Like seeing her in a little capsule in a half an hour, he decided she was bipolar, rather than if you find out that your husband or your wife is having an affair with your best friend, you're probably not going to be sleeping at night. You're probably going to have circles under your eyes. You're probably going to be in a panic and talk fast. That
yeah,
doesn't mean that's who she is. She was
yeah.
in crisis.
Yeah, it's about, again, this is about the empathy. So having empathy for people versus, you know, you have what you've learned and all the symptoms that you learned, but you have to apply it according to as well, you need to have this empathy to understand where people are coming from, so you can find a solution to the problem of what is happening.
Yeah.
Like her, I mean, I think anyone in that situation would have a tough time, like you're saying. So yeah, it's definitely, you need to have some kind of empathy. And how, for example, how do you distance yourself if you had clients during the day? I don't know. How do you distance yourself from hearing all these stories and going home? Because you provide empathy, but how do you also distance yourself from what is happening around you?
Well, I used to think that I distanced myself pretty well, and that, but then when I go on vacation, I notice that I sleep a lot better.
Yeah,
Because of course I take with me what's happening with people, and especially at this time, because I have a client whose father just died of the virus, and I mean, these things stay with me and bother me. Of course, I'm a human being. But one thing I try to do is, from one person to the next, is after I'm done with you, I have another session. I'm pretty able to be with that person. And what I've noticed is, when I'm able to be with the next person in line, or the next person I encounter, it's a mental vacation from myself, because I'm in your movie, not mine.
yeah,
One time a few years ago, I had a back problem and I was in a lot of pain, and I would have to shave on my knees. And then I'd come up to my office. I have a home office, and I would see the patient at 9 o'clock, and I'd see a patient at 10 o'clock. I'd see a patient at 11 o'clock. And then I came downstairs and my wife said, "How's your back?" And I said, "What?" And as soon as I had lost the pain,
yeah, yeah,
because the amazing thing we know this, I wrote a book called The Power of Empathy in the year 2000. And I sensed this, but I couldn't prove it, that when you give and receive empathy, you make a brain change. You
yeah,
produce oxytocin, which is the neurochemical that women produce when they're pregnant. It's
yeah.
called the love connection, the love hormone, the connecting hormone. It
Wow.
makes you live longer. It reduces inflammation, has many, many, many positive consequences. That's what happens when you give and receive empathy. What did it do for me when I was seeing those 3 patients? My pain was gone, until she asked me about it, and then I felt it again.
Yeah. So it's, when you think about it, you're actually becoming present of of this pain again. But when you're with patients, you have a distraction and it doesn't actually exist, which is
Yes.
quite interesting.
Yes.
Wow.
When I used to work in a hospital and I talked to people on medical floors who were in pain, if you could engage them in an interesting conversation, something that they want to talk about, something they're interested in, and usually it's about their lives.
Yeah.
Older people love to tell stories about their lives. So when you engage them in their world and they see that somebody is truly, really curious and interested in their world, their pain goes away.
Yeah.
Why? Because we have a remote control in our hand. We're changing brain chemistry. We
Yeah.
connect and we change brain chemistry.
Yeah. 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 Actually, this is something I'm seeing with my own grandparents. I mean, thank God they're still alive. And every time I visit them, I ask them about times of the war and where they went on a holiday when they were younger. What would they do?
Mhm.
And you see, like, they brighten up
Yes.
immediately, and
Yes.
they're coming with photos, the photos of their marriage, and they're telling me, "Oh, I went to Spain as well. Look, here we are. We went with the car there and there." And it is true. Like, um, my grandma is not feeling great, but when she is talking about her past, you see her just,
Her energy comes up,
yeah,
because she probably sees in your face that you love her, you
yeah,
care about her, and you're interested in her. That's
yeah,
hard to resist.
yeah,
That
yeah,
takes the place of pain.
yeah, yeah.
It's more important than the pain.
And what do you think what happens when, because sometimes around people are not very good listeners. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think people are often rehearsing what they're going to say
Yeah,
while they're listening, because they want to gather self-esteem. They
yeah,
want to impress the other person. One of my patients' wives calls her husband. She always says, "Tom, you're reloading. You're reloading." Meaning she can see in his mind that, when you're talking and someone else's lips are moving because they can't wait to get in.
yeah, yeah,
They're like that, because they want to establish their self-worth when they
Yeah,
don't realize. What I teach people in my groups is when you listen to people, when you truly know how to listen to another human being, you'll have friends for your life forever. And you can
yeah,
make them anywhere you drop in the world, you'll make friends if you know how to listen, because human beings want to be listened to.
yeah, yeah. That's
That's the thing
absolutely
that will
true.
bring you self-worth, not bragging about your stock portfolio or whatever, what the title of your job is. People, that gets old after a while. People don't want to hear it anymore.
And it is again going back with the time, getting to know someone with time. So eventually someone will ask you about something that you would like to tell. And I think it comes off more genuine and authentic as well, because
Yes.
then the person already kind of formed the idea of who you are. And then if you tell them what you're doing, it comes across differently.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, what I wanted to say for everyone who's watching, because you've written a really impressive range of books, and especially the latest book, The Triumph of Diversity, and we're talking about empathy, and you wrote as well The Power of Empathy, the book. Where can people find your books or buy them?
Well, all my books are on Amazon. And
Yeah,
they can also go to my website, balanceyoursuccess.com. They can see the books there. They can also see different interviews.
yeah,
Hopefully this interview will be there soon. But on Amazon carries the books in Kindle and in paperback. So The Triumph of Diversity just came out a few weeks ago. This is the most important book I've ever written
yeah,
because I really want to I want to be part of a movement that decreases the prejudice in the world, not only to other people, but to your own self.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so we create, because especially now when we're feeling this distance during this whole coronavirus, we have to create new ideas on how to connect with each other again. And
Yes,
uh,
yes,
yeah, and how can we do that? It's like um, maybe now we finally have the time to re-embrace what first we thought was fearful, and that we know that actually life is unpredictable. Anything can
mhm,
happen any day. So why
yes,
live in a state of fear?
mhm,
Why stay in that place while there's so much beauty around you? Because even now, for example, I have a beautiful view from my window, and usually I wouldn't even look at it. And now I'm sometimes even going outside and I'm just sitting there and looking around, and I see a bird washing itself in some water, and I'm like, oh, that's actually quite pretty. Well, before you wouldn't even notice these kind of things because you're so busy in, your thoughts are going everywhere. And yeah, and I think this would really, really help in reshaping society. And in combination with your book, that I can really, really recommend to everyone. I'm going to place a link as well in the article so people know where to find your book. What made you write this book, or what made you start writing all these books?
Well, the last two books, I mean, I published a book called The Soulful Leader last year, and this book, The Triumph of Diversity, just a few weeks ago. I didn't even think I was going to write again, but I wrote these two books because I'm so concerned about what's happening in the world. I'm so concerned about the level of prejudice increasing.
Yeah,
I wrote the book so it would decrease, and I wrote The Soulful Leader so to try to help people lead with empathy, integrity, and authenticity,
yeah,
because I know from science, from credible studies, that people follow those people more so than people that lead with fear and aggression. And not only are your workers happier, you're happier, the whole environment is happier. And that leads into, I mean, The Triumph of Diversity is a sequel to that book because we benefit from diversity. We become better with diversity, with understanding people that don't maybe look or act like us on the surface, but we learn so much when we expand our view. And I'm hoping we all will do this. And in this time where people are, as you say, we have to be at home, we can't travel, we can't socialize, slow down and try to appreciate what you've taken for granted before.
yeah, yeah. No, that's beautifully said. I absolutely agree. And I think um, that it's gonna help. These times are actually gonna help, and I truly hope that people are gonna start thinking about what's happening in the world. And how do you see diversity? So you have racism, but is there some other kind of distancing that you have noticed that is happening at this time?
Well, what I've noticed over the last year or two is that people, I mean, and I know that studies have indicated this, that prejudice in the world has increased. It's
Yeah,
increased in the US and it's increased in other countries. And we have certain leaders that foster it. But don't be led by that, because you're being misled.
yeah,
When you have leaders that talk in disparaging ways about other cultures, other countries, people of different religions, it's their ignorance that is making them do this. It's trying to gather a cult-like following. Don't be a member of a cult. Be a free thinker and
yeah,
realize what the truth is. See beyond the surface and see beyond the rhetoric you're hearing, because it is influencing people throughout the world. And this is of grave concern to me. This
yeah,
is a grave concern. We are basically good. You know, there's goodness in every human being. We have to uncover it. Don't live your life with hate and this us-them idea that there's the good people and the bad people. There's good people in every culture, every ethnicity, every country, every religion. Don't ever assume that one group or one person speaks for a whole group. Don't listen to that rhetoric, because it's not true.
yeah, yeah. No, I think that's beautifully said. And I think this is how we're going to close this beautiful discussion. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all your advice. I think everyone is so happy with this interview. Even me, I learned a lot today. So yeah, once again, have a look at these wonderful books. I think we can all learn from listening more, having more empathy, and you know, sharing with you know, sharing your life with people that are maybe not of your own culture or religion, but actually we might be surprised how much we can learn from each other by gathering strength. So thank you so much, Arthur. And if everyone who's watching liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, or subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to have a look at this amazing website. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.